is there anyone that can come in who's available right now that could make a difference? Otherwise, maybe they compress the coaching team.
Last time in Chicago, we got the American commentary. I'll never forget it. Was Sonny Bill, 265 and in for a 5.
Such an amazing job they do trying to sell the game to the American public, because they know what a great game it is, but it's probably the toughest sports market in the world to crack.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, we're just days away from the Grand Slam Tour kicking off them, which is why I got a bit of green, bit of black on. You can't be a Patrick Devlin, not be a little bit Irish. Chicago. Tony Johnson joins us again from Sky Sport. Tony will be calling the 3 games in the UK. That's Scotland, England and Wales, pre-match, post-match. It is always a pleasure, mate. Milestone moments for the All Blacks. Test South Africa, Eden Park. At that stage of the season where we hadn't beaten them in 4 or 5 games, we had the record on the line. Test versus Australia at Eden Park. We were coming back after getting thrashed in Wellington. This Test versus Ireland. I keep thinking, can I create another milestone moment this season? But it does feel like one this weekend, Tony.
Well, everyone's talking about the Grand Slam Tour. To me, it's not a Grand Slam until you've achieved it. But it's an attempt at one.
Right.
And as we've talked about in previous weeks, they don't come very often, the opportunities to do it and the opportunity to actually achieve a Grand Slam. Well, New Zealand 4, South Africa 4, Australia 1. Those are the only times I've been done it by teams visiting the home unions, as they used to be known, Great Britain, Ireland. It's been done within the Six Nations Championship for sure, but it's a hard thing to do. And so they'll be very keen to get a win under their belts, because then they can go into the rest of it with some confidence. The issue for me is how well prepared Ireland are. The suggestion is they might just be a little bit underdone. So this is an opportunity, if that is the case.
Do you believe that, though?
Oh, absolutely I do. Because players have had a break after the British and Irish Lions tour. Some of them have played a bit of club rugby, or most of them have played some club rugby, but not a lot of it. And they've also got some players under an injury cloud. For example, Caelan Doris, who has become a real cornerstone player of that team. He got a shoulder injury, actually ruled him out of the Lions tour, unfortunately, because I think he would have played a big role in that. He hasn't had a game at all. They've picked him in the side, but can they really expect a guy who hasn't played a game since towards the end of the Irish domestic season to just suddenly front up? So that's a question mark. They've lost Mac Hansen, their winger. They've got a couple of other players under a bit of an injury cloud. Bundy Aki is one of them, although he is going. So I suppose the idea of if they think he's going to be okay, then send him. If he wasn't going to be okay, they probably wouldn't be.
Exactly right.
So yeah, maybe a little bit underdone, whereas the All Blacks, I guess they've had a break. Some of them have played a little bit of NPC rugby, but they've still played more recently as a unit. A whole bunch of test matches since Ireland last took the field.
So who needs this more? I've started the show by saying I believe the All Blacks need this more results-wise, because losing to Ireland in Chicago, there goes the Grand Slam at that stage, and that would just be so deflating and disappointing for us. Also on the back of these 2 wins against Australia, we talked about this last week, about that momentum and needing to finish the year building on that momentum again. However, having said that, you know, the home nations and France, when they play these end-of-year tests, Tony, they're kind of strangely timed for those guys, aren't they? Because, as you say, they haven't played since the Six Nations. They've had the Lions tour. They're into the, we can't get, it's not a global calendar. So, there's always one team slightly underdone.
Yeah.
So who needs it more?
I wouldn't disagree with that the All Blacks need it more. That Ireland, that means they can go in with a everything to gain, nothing to lose scenario, because it is their first up test. They would go back after the All Black test and play Japan, and then they've got South Africa and Australia at the end.
Yeah.
And they'll be hoping to really be hitting their straps. So if they can beat the All Blacks first up, boy, that sets them up beautifully for the November internationals. So the All Blacks, look, there is a chance here for them to go through the year with just 2 test defeats.
Which would be, they lost 4 last year, so that's actually a huge improvement, is it right?
And that's notable, because when you think that the Springboks have lost 2 test matches as well so far, that just gives you an idea of how even it is. But mate, you only need to look and see what happened between Australia and Japan at the weekend, where Australia nearly ended up with egg all over their face. that anything can happen. So this is why the importance of this game, not just in terms of the result, they need to hit the ground running. They need to hit the ground running, put up a really good, strong performance and set themselves up for the next 3 weeks. Because I think if they can beat Ireland, then the next 3 weeks just does become, I'm not going to say easy. It's nothing easy about it, but it gets them in the right shape for those rather than having to bounce back from a disappointment.
Selection-wise, and we won't find this out till the end of the week, are you thinking, like I'm probably thinking, that it is more like that team that played in Perth than that's what the selection is going to be like? And I by that I mean Tupaia gets the 13 jersey, these kind of selections, because it worked.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you stick with that combination? I think if they can go back to what was on the field probably at the end, they'll continue to do that. And this is not going to, I would very much doubt that there'll be any sort of shocks or surprises in the selection. I think they will play it conservatively. Certainly the 3 test matches that come first, that Ireland, we know how their record has been, it's just transformed over the last 11 years or 10 years certainly against the All Blacks. Scotland will see this as their best chance to beat the All Blacks in a long time, if ever. And then England, which in more recent years, it always used to be Wales was the pivotal test of an attempt at a Grand Slam. You beat Wales, you probably almost felt like you were halfway there, not a quarter of the way there, halfway there. England, they'll be lying in wait at Twickenham. And then Wales, in all sorts of turmoil at the moment. It's hard to see them coming up with a performance to beat the All Blacks. But you just
well, as you say with Japan, you don't know.
You just don't know. Yeah. And then, look, there's a wonderful uncertainty about Test rugby at the moment, and I think it's great for the game. I know people like to think, they should be winning everything and by good margins and etc. It's just not the reality of Test rugby anymore.
We're going to talk in another bit of the podcast about some of the most memorable tests between our two countries, but just briefly on that 2016 test, which was a landmark moment for Irish rugby because they got really close in 2013 and in an Aaron Cruden retake and kick and so forth. A Dan Carter drop kick in Christchurch. They've got close in the past. We might have even drawn one against them. But that win, Joe Schmidt beating us when we were back-to-back world champions, how significant has that been for Irish rugby?
Well, that's been huge. You mentioned the game because I think the last time we talked about attempts at the Grand Slam, and we never got around to talking the one on the 72-73 tour, where it was actually Ireland who denied the All Blacks, Ian Kirkpatrick's All Black team, a Grand Slam. It wasn't the happiest of tours. Remember the Murdoch thing and a bunch of other stuff that happened. But they went to Dublin with a chance to win the Grand Slam, and they got denied right at the end. I think it was Tommy Gray scored a try in the corner, and Barry McGann had a shot at goal from way out wide to win the Test match. Didn't do that, but they still denied the All Blacks a Grand Slam. So they'd come close, but never got there until that game in Chicago.
Yep.
I was going to nearly said Dublin. That game in Chicago, which was followed by a game in Dublin 2 weeks later. That was an epic fortnight, 3 weeks. And everything changed then because up until that point, Ireland could always be relied on to come out breathing fire, hissing and roaring, maybe building up a lead, getting out early, and in some cases build up a sizable lead. Vis-a-vis that famous game that took place when you just mentioned, when 2 shots at conversion, the second one went over and the All Blacks ended the year with an unbeaten or a winning record.
Yeah, won every game,
But what that did was that it changed the expectation of Irish fans very quickly, that they'd always been so magnanimous in defeat. We put up a great show. It was a great day.
Great crowd. Let's get on it. All that.
Suddenly everything did change, and the atmosphere for that game 2 weeks later in Dublin was different to what we'd experienced before. Yes, you still had the silence when the kicks were being taken at goal, but there was an animosity sort of crept in on the field. There were a couple of incidents during the game, and the crowd got pretty angry as well. In fact, I can remember copping a bit of an earful from someone at the airport as we left the next day. As I thought, wow.
Did you say I'm not playing? Did you say I didn't?
Everything's changed a little bit. So there was now suddenly there is an expectation, and of course they followed that up with not only another win over the All Blacks achieved in Dublin, but winning a series here in New Zealand. So the expectation of the Irish fans now is completely different to what it was 15 years ago.
Tony, playing in Chicago, and we're going to get on to the fact there has been changes, or there will be changes now in the All Blacks coaching lineup in a second, but playing in Chicago, the All Blacks on the road, it's going to be an away crowd, 65 or 70,000 in Soldier Field, and probably 80 or 90% of that are going to be wearing green, you would expect?
I'm hearing 70, something like that. I was talking to a friend of mine in Chicago. The game sold out in a flash, by the way, which is terrific. Great for rugby.
But also, this is what the All Blacks bring. You know, this is the pulling power that we have.
Oh, yeah. The All Blacks bring that pulling power, but the Irish will bring the bulk of the fans.
Sure.
But there'll be fans, also rugby fans, from all around North America, even South America. I remember when we were there, we were there for the game against the USA and then for the game against Ireland, and there were players turning up from Central America, fans turning up from Central America, from South America, all round America to go and see the game. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen any of the television coverage. I've seen a couple of clips on YouTube where the All Blacks have been getting out amongst the public and having little sessions, little clinics with young players and autograph signing, that sort of thing. And these American kids sitting there and they're just in la-la land. They're loving it. So it's doing great things for the profile of rugby, which still very much lives way in the shadows
in America. Of course it does, yeah.
But these games, I think World Rugby are going to encourage more and more of these because they are going to host a World Cup in 2031. And when people see Soldier Field, such an iconic field, packed for a game that maybe they don't know very much about, if anything, it might make them look twice. And I can tell you one other thing, and I remember from the time they played the USA, the first time they went over there, went out, had a quiet dinner afterwards because we were heading off the next day, got back to the hotel in time to watch the network news. I think it might have been, was it a 9 o'clock, maybe a 10 o'clock news bulletin, I don't know, but it was a network bulletin, and they ended the bulletin on the All Blacks doing the haka. And that's not just in Chicago, that's right around the country. So that's the sort of impact that a game like this can have. So it's great for the profile of the game in the United States. But then, of course, there's a business of a test match to be won between two what have become now very, very fierce rivals.
Do we need to make anything of the fact that the field's narrow? It's the narrowest field that we'll ever...
Yeah, we do, because it does inhibit the way the All Blacks have traditionally liked to play. It's been a bit of a tactic at times. I know that they've played on a couple of pretty narrow fields in Argentina.
Yeah. A couple of Ranfurly Shield coaches have pulled that one too, Tony, from time to time, haven't they? Yeah, and the Kiwi coach has pulled that one before.
Yeah.
So
it does impact your ability to create space out wide, for sure. And there can be also little orientation issues about the width of the field and that. And you do see players going into touch that probably wouldn't normally happen on a game played on the full-size field. And so it means that you're going to have to go through the middle a bit. And that's something that the All Blacks are still not doing as well as they would like to do. And I think that's where the loss of Tupou and Paddy Tuipulotu, two of the best go-forward players that they've got, that's a bit of a blow, that. But absolutely, it means that they are going to have to win some very hard metres to earn the right to go wide in a test match like this.
I don't know why last time in Chicago, we got the American commentary. I'll never forget it was Sonny Bill, 265 and in for a 5.
Yeah, but what they're doing is that they are trying to talk in a language that people
their fans
in the States will understand.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And we look at it and we think that
that's a bit strange.
It's a bit strange, but that's the way they feel they
can sell it.
They have to do it because, look, there are people involved in rugby in North America, and I'm thinking about guys like Dan Lyle in the States and old mate Gareth up in Canada. You know, they just such an amazing job they do trying to sell the game to the American public or the North American public, because they know what a great game it is. But it's probably the toughest sports market in the world to crack, isn't it?
Jason Holland leaves. So Leon McDonald leaves. Jason Holland leaves. And look, I watched the interviews. I've read all the press releases and everything else. I don't know what the full story is, and I don't know whether we'll ever get to know what the full story is. And maybe we don't need to know what the full story is. But what does it actually mean for the All Blacks going forward here? Do they replace him? Do they need to replace him? Is it that important what his role was? Can they actually cover it with the guys that are there? How's this going to unfold after this tour?
Well, the last definition I saw of his role was set-piece attack, which isn't a broad scope there. To me, it might suggest that do they need to replace him? Is there anyone that can come in who's available right now that could make a difference? Otherwise, maybe they compress the coaching team. And look, I think you have to take it at face value until you know something else that he's just decided that he's done his dash there. Maybe he feels that he's not the fit, or
maybe he's got another job. Who knows?
Who knows?
But you don't leave the All Blacks for another job.
I would doubt that that's the case. But at the moment, it's all speculation. That I think there was definitely smoke and fire around Leon McDonald leaving, because Leon McDonald, I don't think, ended up with the role that he thought he was going to have. And I don't think that's any great secret, and got a bit surprised when he thought that's my job, and someone said, no, that's his.
Yep. And
so in the end, he went. This is a bit different, I think, that, he's had 2 years at it. I'll be very surprised if they bring someone else in. They might reshuffle things. And look, maybe it's just part of trying to move the chairs around until they find the right formula. I mean, the Dream Team did that, don't forget. Henry, Hansen, Smith, they all swapped roles at one point, and it turned out to be a really useful exercise. They all kind of morphed back into the roles that they'd had before. So inevitably there'll be speculation, but as I say, until I hear otherwise, definitely I'll just take it at face value.
Tony, so you've got these 3 games in the UK. You've called the All Blacks all over the world. You've called very important games. What does it mean to you to go and do this part of the tour, these 3 games?
Oh, yes. I'm really looking forward to it.
It must be a dream. Is it still a dream?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yep. And so I think Sunday I'm off straight to Scotland. I'm packing my bags already because I know I'm going to forget stuff. And, be the usual story, jumping on the suitcase to try and get it closed. And then my wife will come along and go, do you really need this? You don't need that. You don't need that. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. And of course, such iconic venues, the 3 of them. Murrayfield. I've obviously been part of the commentary team at all 3 of them. And I have called tests at Murrayfield before. It's incredible atmosphere there. Game that really does captivate the city. Same thing happens when you're in Wales as well. You can't help it because of that beautiful stadium right in the middle of the city.
Right in the
city. Yeah. What a great place to have. No, I'm really looking forward to it, mate.
And what are we going to get? So there's going to be build up obviously beforehand and afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, we'll have obviously. During the week, there'll be stuff going in on our social channels. There'll be stuff going into Crowd Goes Wild. We'll have a preview show on the Friday night.
Yep.
Then obviously there'll be a build-up to the Test match on match day and post-match, and then of course breakdown afterwards. With the wrap-up, and we'll be, Justin and I will be filing stuff for that as well. So there's plenty going on.
Awesome.
Around the Test matches, yeah.
Plus, we'll also be very lucky to have you a couple of times, obviously, talking about the game, and also as the teams are announced every week as well.
Yep.
So looking forward to it. All right, quick call. Who wins this first game then? And I'll say first. I always think, if you ask me, are the All Blacks going to win? Yes, I think we are going to win. But I do think we are going to win. And it was because of what you said earlier. I feel like we're just in a better place at the moment. We've had a couple of weeks off. And I know the players have been on holiday and so forth. But, we've got a week to prepare. That's long enough when you've just had a rugby championship. We started to show some form against Australia there, that we've got something to build on. And I just believe the importance of the occasion for us is so important. This is one of those ones where the All Blacks are almost having to win. And I like it when we're faced with
Well,
these.
I'm going to say I think the All Blacks will win the game if they can produce the form that they showed right at the end of the Rugby Championship and at Eden Park against the Springboks, I suppose. But those last 2 games, if they can replicate that, then, I think they catch Ireland just a little bit underdone, maybe missing a couple of key players. And so, yeah, this is the opportunity to get this tour off to a really good start.
Leave us a comment, of course, in the comment section. We'll have mailbag on Friday.
This is the DSPN.